Intersections, conversations. Frustrated, angered, confused, or just plain tired of the polarizing conversations about race? Not sure what to say, what to think, or even what to do? Well, you've come to the right place. As we move beyond the rhetoric to look for solutions that reduce health disparities and create better working environments. As my grandmother would say, it has to come up to come out. Welcome to our Intersections Conversations, where diversity, equity, and inclusion meet.
Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're diving into something that I think we can all relate to: motivation and goal achievement. You know, that feeling, right?
Yeah.
Setting your sights on something you really want, and then, well, life happens.
It's a topic that can feel deceptively simple on the surface. Just pick a goal and go for it. But as we dig into the research, it becomes clear there's a real art to setting the right goals. And then, of course, navigating those inevitable roadblocks along the way.
Absolutely. We've got some fascinating excerpts to unpack today from 17 motivation and goal achievement exercises, which is just this treasure trove of positive psychology techniques in that really insightful document on crucial conversations. So, expert speaker, what were your initial impressions diving into these? Anything stand out?
What really struck me is this. It's not enough to simply want something. It's about understanding the psychology behind why we set certain goals. And then how communication, even those tough conversations we tend to avoid, can truly make or break our success.
I love that you picked up on that connection right away. It's like knowing what you want is only half the battle. The 17 exercises document dives deep into this, especially with the idea of reframing goals. Have you ever noticed how we sometimes get stuck focusing on what we don't want? Like, I don't want to feel stuck in my career anymore.
Absolutely. And that resource highlights how that kind of thinking keeps us locked in a negative mindset. Instead, it's about consciously shifting to, okay, if not this, then what? What does progress actually look like for me? It's subtle, but it's a powerful shift from avoidance to intention.
It's so true. And they had this really relatable example about weight loss. They said that instead of fixating on a number on the scale, it's far more effective to reframe it as, my goal is to develop a healthy relationship with food and movement. It's not just semantics, right? That kind of shift changes the whole game.
It absolutely does. Because it moves us away from this finish line mentality and towards sustainable change. It becomes less about deprivation and more about understanding what truly fuels your well-being.
Okay, so we're reframing our goals, thinking about the why behind our desires, and this leads us perfectly into the crucial conversations material, right? It's like we can have the best intentions in the world, but if we're not communicating effectively.
Exactly. That document underscores how even with rock-solid goals, you sometimes need to have those difficult conversations to clear a path forward. They can be with colleagues, with loved ones, even with yourself. That inner critic can be the toughest conversation partner.
Oh, 100%. And they had this acronym I love, STATE. It's a framework for having those honest conversations without resorting to blame or defensiveness. S, share the facts. T, tell your story. A, ask for their perspective. T, talk it through together. E, encourage open dialogue.
Such a valuable tool.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is how this connects back to motivation. We often avoid these crucial conversations because they feel risky. But the document argues that avoiding them is the real sucker's choice.
Tell me more about that sucker's choice idea. It feels so relevant, especially when we think about all the times we stayed silent instead of speaking up.
Right. Like that example they gave about a coworker who's consistently showing up late. On the surface, it's about punctuality. But what if it's actually impacting team morale or delaying projects? The sucker's choice is thinking you have two bad options: speak up and potentially create conflict, or say nothing and just let the resentment fester.
And the real solution lies in having that crucial conversation, but doing it through the lens of state, right? Sharing how the behavior is impacting you, being open to hearing their side and finding a solution together.
Exactly. Because avoiding that conversation might feel easier in the short term, but ultimately it sabotages both your individual goals and the team's ability to thrive.
This is where it gets really interesting for our listener, don't you think? We often compartmentalize goal setting and communication, but these sources are revealing just how intertwined they really are.
They are. Think about it. You could be incredibly disciplined, laser-focused on a personal goal, but if you haven't clarified expectations with your partner or asked for support from friends, well, you're likely facing an uphill battle.
Okay, so we're starting to see the bigger picture here. We've got this powerful combination of setting the right goals, the why behind the what, and then mastering the art of crucial conversations to remove those internal and external roadblocks.
It's like we're building a toolkit for our listener, one insightful concept at a time. But what's really exciting is how these tools can be applied to any goal, big or small, personal or professional.
I completely agree. And that's where 17 exercises gets even more granular, right? They go beyond just the what of goal setting and offer some really practical exercises for tapping into our intrinsic motivation.
Absolutely. One concept that particularly resonated with me was the distinction between performance goals and learning goals. Have you ever noticed how some goals feel externally driven, like you're trying to prove something to others, while others just light you up from the inside out?
Oh, definitely. It's a difference between I want to get that promotion so I can finally feel respected at work versus I'm genuinely fascinated by leadership and I want to master these new skills to be more effective in my role.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that 17 exercises dives into the psychological impact of these different goal orientations. They suggest that while performance goals are often about seeking external validation, learning goals tap into something much deeper.
It's like that intrinsic motivation you mentioned earlier, right? When the pursuit of knowledge or mastery is its own reward. It makes me think of artists who spend years honing their craft, often in obscurity, because they're so driven by the process itself.
Yes, and the research suggests that learning goals can be more sustainable in the long run because they're less dependent on external outcomes, which are often outside our control. It's less about seeking approval and more about cultivating a growth mindset.
It makes you wonder if we sometimes set ourselves up for frustration, by chasing the wrong kind of goal. Like what happens when that promotion doesn't come through, or that external validation we're seeking never actually materializes.
It's a recipe for burnout, isn't it? And that's where the Crucial Conversations document offers another layer of wisdom. They talk about the importance of dialogue, especially those tough internal conversations, for navigating setbacks and course correcting along the way.
So it's not just about having those crucial conversations with others, but also learning to have them with ourselves.
Precisely. It's about cultivating that inner dialogue, that honesty about what's working and what's not working. It reminds me of the sucker's choice concept we discussed earlier. Sometimes the real sucker's choice is avoiding that honest internal assessment because it just feels too uncomfortable.
Because it's easier to stay on autopilot, even when it's leading us in the wrong direction.
Exactly. The Crucial Conversations document encourages us to challenge that avoidance, to lean into those difficult conversations, both internal and external, as opportunities for growth and clarity.
It's like that old saying, the only way out is through.
Yes. And sometimes that means having the courage to say, this isn't working, I need to adjust my approach, have a difficult conversation, or even reevaluate my goals altogether.
And speaking of courage, wasn't there something in Crucial Conversations about how to approach those conversations, especially when the stakes are high? I remember feeling a little intimidated by that section, to be honest.
Absolutely. They emphasize the importance of psychological safety, both for ourselves and the person we're engaging with. It's about creating a space where it's okay to be vulnerable, to disagree respectfully, and to really prioritize understanding over winning.
That makes sense. But how do we actually create that kind of safety, especially when we're dealing with a sensitive topic or a potential conflict?
They offer some really practical tips, like starting with shared goals. What's the common ground you're both striving for? Can you remind yourself and the other person that you're both on the same team, even if you have different perspectives?
So it's about shifting the dynamic from me versus you to us versus the problem.
Exactly. And it's about active listening. Really trying to understand where the other person is coming from, even if you don't agree with them. It's amazing how much tension can be diffused by simply feeling heard and understood.
And isn't that a form of validation? Maybe not the external validation we were talking about earlier, but a deeper kind that comes from genuine connection and understanding.
I think you're onto something. Maybe true motivation, the kind that fuels lasting change, isn't just about setting the right goals, but also about cultivating the courage and self-awareness to navigate that messy, human side of the journey.
That's such a powerful insight. It's like we're not just trying to achieve something in isolation, but we're learning to navigate those relationships and conversations that are essential to any kind of meaningful growth, both personally and professionally.
And that's where those Crucial Conversations tools become invaluable, because they give us a framework for navigating conflict constructively, building stronger relationships, and ultimately creating the support system we need to achieve our goals, whatever they may be.
It's like we're not just individuals striving for goals in a vacuum,
Yeah.
you know? It's like we're part of this complex ecosystem of relationships, and those relationships can either fuel our motivation or become roadblocks. It's about finding that balance, right?
Yeah.
Being clear about our own needs and goals, but also being mindful of the impact our actions have on others.
Precisely. And that brings us back to the 17 exercises document. One of the most powerful takeaways for me was this idea that true motivation often lies at the intersection of our personal aspirations and our desire to contribute to something, well, larger than ourselves.
So it's not just about me, myself, and my goals. It's about finding that sweet spot where our passions and talents align with a sense of purpose, like a desire to make a difference in the world.
Exactly. The document actually highlights research suggesting that people who connect their goals to a sense of purpose tend to be more resilient, more motivated, and ultimately more successful in achieving those goals.
It's like knowing your why isn't enough. We also need a who, as in, who are we serving with our efforts? Who are we trying to help or inspire?
That's a beautiful way to put it, and it reminds me of the sucker's choice concept from Crucial Conversations. Sometimes the real sucker's choice is buying into this limiting belief that we have to choose between personal fulfillment and making a difference.
So it's not an either-or situation. We don't have to choose between chasing our dreams and making a positive impact.
Not at all. In fact, the two can be beautifully synergistic. When we tap into that sense of purpose, it can fuel our motivation, enhance our creativity, and even connect us with a community of like-minded individuals who support our growth.
It's like that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Exactly. And that sense of community, of shared purpose, can be incredibly empowering, especially when we're navigating those inevitable challenges and setbacks that are just part of any growth journey.
It's like having a tribe of people who not only believe in your goals, but also believe in your ability to achieve them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that kind of support can make all the difference, can't it? Knowing that you're not alone, that there are people who've been there before and are rooting for you to succeed.
It makes you wonder if sometimes we underestimate the power of connection, of vulnerability, of reaching out and asking for support when we need it.
It's so true. We often try to do it all ourselves, to be fiercely independent. But the truth is, we're hardwired for connection. And that connection, that sense of belonging, can be a powerful source of motivation and resilience.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one nugget of wisdom you'd want our listener to walk away with? What's that key takeaway that can help them unlock their full potential?
I think it's this. The journey of motivation and goal achievement is a deeply personal one. But it doesn't have to be a solitary one. By embracing the power of connection, of vulnerability, of those crucial conversations, both internal and external, we unlock a level of support, clarity, and purpose that can propel us toward the lives we truly desire.
That's such an inspiring message. It's a reminder that we're all in this together, and that by supporting each other, by sharing our stories, by embracing that messy human side of the journey, we can achieve extraordinary things. So listener, what resonated most with you today? What goal will you pursue with newfound motivation, clarity, and a deeper sense of purpose? We're excited to see what you create.
Intersections, conversations. Talk is cheap. We have explored key issues in developing better human relations, but it means nothing if you don't do something with our conversations. Race and differences are just obstacle illusions, so do something right where you are. Well, that's it for this intersection conversation, where diversity, equity, and inclusion meet.